Okay, in this video, we're going to take a look at composition of functions, and I'm just going to have a couple of specific versions here. You can do these types of problems in one of two ways. You can view functions as like an input-output, and some magic happens inside, and do it that way as far as what is being asked for here, or you can compose the two functions and then look for the common output. It's really up to you. Doesn't truly matter either way. You should get the same answer no matter which way you do it. My dog is trying to settle down for the night. Okay, so I'm going to do it both ways just to show you. And during this, I'll just do a little bit of a kind of an explanation as to what's going on behind the scenes, perhaps. So if you view the functions as being this black box of goodiness, you have an input, and then depending on the order, and then I'm going to use this for this f of g of -1, then g is going to go first. G gets the first input of -1, so this would be g of x, and g of x is going to create an output. So it's kind of like, you know, inserting parts into a factory and then out pops whatever widget you want to make. Well, in the case of, say, a vehicle, a car, you put in parts like, oh, I don't know, the camshaft and the block and the head and all the gaskets and everything, and poof, out pops an engine. Well, then that engine doesn't just stop. It's not a full car yet. So the output becomes the input to the next portion of the factory or a different factory. That output turns into an input to the next thing. And then what you get as an output is the rest of the car. So all of this stuff can be thought of as a composition of functions. So we're going to do one thing, get an output, that becomes the input of the next thing, get an output, that becomes the next input of the next thing, and so on and so forth. Navigating works like this. If you use Google Maps or you use, MapQuest or any other type of navigation tool, it's going to give you step-by-step instructions on how to get somewhere. Each one of those you can view as being a function that is being composed. So step 1 feeds step 2, feeds step 3, feeds step 4, and it just pops along like this. Using this idea, we can then go ahead and calculate what this is without actually having to compose the two functions. But it's mainly because we know what the input is, so we can find the resultant output. All right, taking this first one here, and this is going to be in purple, f of g of -1. First, we're going to find g of -1, because that's what the first one gets. The one closest to the number is the one that gets the first thing. If you're doing multiple compositions, it goes in the order from the right to the left. So g of -1 is equal to -1. Wow, I am really off. -1 plus 5. That's going to give us +4. So what's going to happen now is we're going to take this +4, we're going to find f of 4. Remember, g's output becomes the input to f. So f of 4 is going to be 1 minus 4 squared, which is going to be -15. So the final answer here, f of g of -1, is -15. That's one way of doing it. Okay, so anytime you're given an actual input, a numerical input to these compositions, you can go ahead and do it this way. If you're not given it, meaning you're given just find f of g of x, then there's a slightly different way that you have to do it, but it's still the same general formula. So over here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to compose, in general, I'm going to compose g of f of x. And I'm going to start off by doing that, and then I'm just going to insert 2, and I'll be done. So if I compose g of f, f comes first. So we're told that in order to perform this composition, it's really g of f of x. That means take all of f, all of this stuff, and plug it in for all x's in g. The output of f becomes the input to g. And the output is all of this rule. So this is going to be 1 minus x squared plus 5. That's what g of f of x is. So if we clean this up a little bit and just kind of expand it out, this is going to be -x squared, and then 1 plus 5 is 6. So now we have we have an equation that describes what g of f of x is. At this point, we just go ahead and we take our input, which is 2. G of f of 2 gives us negative 2 squared plus 6. This is going to be 4, but a negative, so negative 4 plus 6 is positive 2. So g of f of 2 is 2. And that's it. That's roughly composition of functions. And again, you can do this in all sorts of different ways. This video is more intended for those that are just starting to learn about composition of functions. The composition is its own operation. It only works on functions. It does not, you don't compose real numbers. You compose functions. So it's not part of the 4 main operators on real numbers, which there's really only 2. Anyway, I hope this helped. Take care.